There's something profoundly ironic and undeniably deliberate about portraying yourself in a scene that for someone else meant death. In 1927, legendary dancer Isadora Duncan died when her long silk scarf caught in the wheel of a car and strangled her. A death so strange and symbolic, it almost felt like a metaphor. A woman consumed by her own freedom. 2 years later, Tamara de Lempicka painted herself behind the wheel of a car, her scarf billowing violently in the wind. Her self-portrait in a green Bugatti would become her most iconic image. But here's the thing, this isn't a self-portrait of fact. It's a self-portrait of identity. And it makes sense, because when you look at that enormous gray scarf filling the frame, you can almost feel the wrist tightening around her neck. By the time she created this painting, she already knew what danger meant. She had fled a war, revealed her life from nothing, and gambled everything on reinvention. That scarf, it's the thread that never left her. Once you place this painting in its real context, something becomes impossible to ignore. Tamara de Lempicka's art has been profoundly misunderstood. For decades, this painting has been celebrated as a symbol of female emancipation. But as we can see, maybe it means so much more, and so does her entire work of art. And that's what we are going to talk about today. Her work is so often labeled as cold, superficial, excessively luxurious. She's crowned the Queen of Art Deco, even though the term Art Deco didn't exist until 1966, decades after her most iconic paintings. And her life usually reduced to late-night parties, lovers, and gossip. People call her hedonist, selfish, shallow, but honestly, it's such a shame, because if you scratch that icy surface, you find a woman who painted to define herself. A woman who actually embodied the figures she portrayed. She meant it literally when she said, "My work is a permanent self-portrait." So today, I'm not here for her timeline or a list of facts about her life. I want to show you, through her own paintings, the other Tamaras, the ones we rarely talk about. So first, we'll explore her late paintings. These works reveal a completely different Tamara. We are going to meet a reflective, quieter, deeply vulnerable woman shaped by what was happening in her life at the time. Second, we'll look at the part of her life almost always ignored: motherhood. Portraits of her daughter appear again and again across her entire career. For Tamara, painting Kisset was a language. And third, we'll revisit her most iconic era. Not to repeat cliches, not to talk about glamour and nude bodies, but to understand how she built such a unique, instantly recognizable style. Was she chasing fame, recognition, or was she simply trying to survive? So, yes, the green Bugatti is usually the glamorous doorway into Tamara's world. That vivid green wasn't random. It was one of the defining colors of her early style, a palette she returned to again and again. But today, instead of starting with the green, sleek, confident Tamara everyone knows, I want to begin with a different color entirely. A deeper, quieter shade of blue. A more nostalgic, spiritual, and vulnerable Tamara. When so much of Tamara de Lempicka's art has been vulgarized, reduced to the most sensational fragments of her life, for me it feels right to start this visual journey with the paintings no one talks about, her late works. These are the paintings that never made it into major galleries, that critics dismissed and collectors ignored. But they're also the works closest to her heart. One of the clearest examples is a small but profoundly significant painting from 1935 called The Mother Superior. During a trip to Italy, Tamara sought out a convent hoping to find relief from the emotional and physical suffering that was consuming her. There she met Sister Therese Delphine, the Mother Superior of a convent in Parma. And that encounter changed her. She painted Sister Therese almost immediately. The face that steadied her, the presence that moved her. When you notice the tear sliding down the sister's cheek, it's almost impossible not to think about Rogier van der Weyden's Descent from the Cross, a work saturated with grief, where every tear is rendered with brutal precision. Once you see it, how can you forget this portrait? The accuracy with which she even captured the vein in the temple of the sister's head is truly moving. Look at this photograph. She stands beside the painting like its guardian, proud, protective, ready to tell its story. Another magnificent work from this period, this very emotional period, is this painting inspired by Bernini's sculpture. It's extraordinary how the cold surface of Carrara marble becomes alive, almost breathing under her brush. Many of the paintings from this period were produced in the United States and revealed just how intense her life had become. She was far from war, but her mind and heart were really troubled. Tamara was terrified by the coming shadow of World War II, shaken by yet another forced displacement and exhausted by chronic pain. These were very difficult years for her. The portraits and the style that once built her fame no longer brought comfort to her heart. What becomes clear is that this stage of her work was profoundly melancholic, and is in these paintings, the quiet, still lives, the modest portraits of unknown women, the detailed interiors. She found something she couldn't find elsewhere: peace, consolation, and hope. In these works, she revealed a Tamara history rarely acknowledges, a Tamara radically different but brutally true. Another aspect of Tamara's work that reveals who she really was is the sheer number of times she painted her daughter, Kisette. The reality is that Kisette only saw her mother once or twice a year, and when she did, it was often to sit for portraits. You can argue endlessly about what kind of mother she was. You can point to absences and contradictions. This probably has something to do with the fact that her own relationship with motherhood was fractured from the beginning. Raised mostly by her grandmother and her aunt, Tamara inherited a maternal legacy filled with shadows rather than guidance. And yet, she loved Kisette in the only way she truly mastered. She painted her. She could be an artist, a celebrity, a baroness, but whenever those identities wavered, and they often did, she could return to this one truth: she was a mother. Kisette described her better by saying, "She was strict to others, but she was also strict with herself. One was not allowed to be tired. One was not allowed to put off for tomorrow." One of the clearest windows into this mother-daughter relationship is Kisette in Pink, when Kisette was 10 years old. It's a stunning example of Tamara's signature style. Let's look closely at Kisette herself. She fills the frame completely, as if her mother couldn't bear to place her at distance. Her chin is tucked, her gaze looks upward, not quite innocent. It's a child's expression, yes, but crafted by a mother who understood performance, who understood how posture and framing could complicate a figure. Kisette wears white Mary Janes and a tennis outfit. One shoe is off, a tiny detail that softens the image instantly, reminding us she is a child. It's a portrait where tenderness and tension coexist. I love this painting. There's one painting that perfectly shows how exceptionally Tamara could handle a delicate theme like motherhood. In Maternité, we see a dark-haired woman with a haircut strikingly similar to Tamara's own at the time, breastfeeding a baby. Tamara's figures usually look up or straight at us, bold and confrontational, but not this woman. Her gaze drifts off into nowhere. She's simply there, absorbed by this task she must repeat day after day. There's no glamour, no theatrics, just that moment of tenderness and exhaustion. And what about this one? I find it so moving that she chose to repaint the same scene of her daughter sleeping almost 40 years after the first version and just 5 years before her own death. And when you look at all these paintings of Kizet dressed in different costumes, playing different roles, growing from child to adult, you realize they are more than portraits. They are a whole emotional vocabulary. Tamara was a woman who in many moments had to choose, be a mother or be an artist. And I feel like in these works, she allowed herself to fully habituate those two roles. This is her way of being both a mother and an artist. Let's step into the part of Tamara's story everyone thinks they already understand. The iconic style, the glamorous Art Deco portraits that built her legend. But I'm not going to comment on any particular painting because I believe there's so much material, good material out there from this period. My focus here is to understand them from a different perspective. Here's the truth most people miss. These paintings weren't born from her being a wealthy, accommodated woman born in luxury. They were born from survival, from the urgency of being someone, from a woman who needed to dominate a challenging city like Paris that didn't expect her, didn't ask for her, and certainly didn't make space for her. Made her money being pretty and witty. Most of the art from this period was powered by one obsession: becoming the best painter in Paris. Not just good, but she wanted to be unmistakable. She wanted a style no one could ignore. For this, she understood something essential. There will always be people who value clarity, craftsmanship, and elegance. While the avant-garde was tearing painting apart, cubism, futurism, abstraction, Tamara sensed something critics forgot. Some forms of beauty never go out of style. Line, order, balance, the quiet discipline of technique. And she said it herself. I was the first woman to make clear paintings, and that was the origin of my success. Among 100 canvases, mine were always recognizable. My work was clear and finished. I looked around me and I saw only the total destruction of painting. Honestly, I would love to know which paintings she considered to be part of this total destruction. Then she continues. I search for technique, craft, simplicity, and good taste. My goal: never copy. Create a new style with luminous and brilliant colors. Rediscover the elegance of my models. And she delivered. She didn't copy. She absorbed Botticelli, Bronzino, Parmigianino, the Mannerist style. She reinvented the Quattrocento and the Flemish masters. She fused them into something no one had seen before. We cannot blame her for understanding what delighted the eye or for understanding the market. High society in couture sells. It always has. It worked for Sargent, it worked for Baldini, and it would be nonsense to call them superficial because of that. Tamara actually painted what she knew. She painted women's fashion with reverence and prestige. She painted women's bodies with elegance, restraint, delicacy. She painted women's autonomy, their confidence, independence, and erotic self-possession. She painted complex men, conflicted men, mysterious men. She painted her long-term partner in intimate variations, offering us glimpses into the private life she rarely shared. And she proved just how technically sophisticated she was, blending influences from Renaissance Italy and Northern Europe, experimenting with hybrid techniques and always pushing toward a clarity that felt both modern and eternal. This wasn't decadence. This was ambition, discipline, strategy, something fiercely intentional. And it was the foundation of the style that would make her unforgettable, but also her way of thriving and surviving in an intimidating Paris. So when people look at her paintings and see only glamour, they are missing the point entirely. Because what Tamara built wasn't a fantasy, it was a strategy, a language, a way for a woman with no safety net, no homeland, and no guarantee of tomorrow to carve out a space in a ruthless world. Behind every immaculate portrait was a woman trying to hold her life together with precision and style. She was trying to create order on the canvas when she couldn't always find it in her own life. Tamara shared in one occasion how she had fled Russia as a young woman, escaping the revolution with nothing. She clearly lost all her possessions in that moment, and that wound never really closed. When she finally made it to Paris, every time she sold a painting, she would buy diamond bracelets. Not for show, but as an insurance. If she ever had to run again, she could carry those diamonds on her wrist and start over. That was the mindset behind the devil may care attitude, behind the relentless work ethic. She wasn't painting luxury. She was painting stability into her life, the kind she feared she might lose at any moment again. And once you understand that, Tamara de Lempicka stops being a symbol of Art Deco excess and becomes what she really was, a woman who survived the most difficult circumstances with grace, elegance, and dignity. A truly poised and self-assured woman that will never go out of style, but not because of the glamorous paintings, but because of her compromise with greatness and excellency. Oh my god. I forgot to say bye. So, bye. See you